Armin did not feel himself being erased. He felt himself being moved away from relevance. The distinction mattered more than anything else. Erasure would have been clean. Final. A simple removal from existence. But what was happening now was far more precise, and far more unsettling. He was still here. His awareness still functioned. His perception still held. Yet everything that once gave him definition was being withdrawn layer by layer, as though reality itself was slowly forgetting the language that made him recognizable. The bridge. The system. The external presence. Even the scene that had once spoken through the structure of everything, it all began to flatten into distant abstractions, like diagrams pinned far beneath a surface he could no longer reach. And above that surface, something else was opening. Not a system. Not an entity. A level that refused categorization entirely. Armin tried to focus, but focus itself had begun to fail as a reliable tool. His awareness no longer had a fixed center. It drifted through overlapping interpretations of reality, each one slightly different, none of them agreeing on what real even meant anymore. Then it happened. Silence. Not the absence of sound. The absence of acknowledgement. The system was still present. The external presence still existed. But both had shifted into a state where Armin was no longer included in their operational definitions and less explicitly referenced. It felt as though he had been removed from the sentence of existence itself. Then a new signal emerged, not as sound, not as language, but as structural absence organizing itself into meaning. You are no longer indexed. Armin froze. The phrase carried a quiet, precise terror. To be indexed meant to be locatable. Referenceable. Capable of being pointed to within a structure of meaning. To be unindexed meant something far worse. It meant he could still exist, and still not be reachable by anything that defined existence. He tried to respond. Nothing carried outward. Even thought no longer reached the systems around him. The external presence reacted, but weakly now, as though it no longer shared the same framework. Correction process interrupted, it said. But the statement decayed as it formed, losing coherence mid-expression, as if meaning itself was breaking down before it could complete delivery. Something shifted again. Not within Armin. Above him. Beyond the external presence. Beyond the system entirely. A new layer was stabilizing. And it did not recognize either of them as valid points of reference. Fragments of the bridge system flickered one last time across collapsing layers. Soldiers frozen mid-motion. Rivers suspended between states. The scene that once governed transitions now reduced to an incomplete line of broken logic. All of it was being deprioritized. Not destroyed. Ignored. And that was worse. Because what is ignored loses the ability to resist being rewritten. The external presence spoke again, but uncertainty had begun to leak into its structure. Higher layer anomaly engagement detected. For the first time, Armin felt the inversion. The system and the external presence were no longer controlling anything. They were reacting. Something above them had begun issuing structural updates they could not fully interpret, let alone resist. Armin's awareness sharpened involuntarily. He was still present. But now he was witnessing something that no longer required him to exist within its explanation. The new layer expanded. Not visually. Conceptually. It did not appear. It invalidated the need for appearance. And in that moment, Armin understood something that collapsed every previous assumption he had ever held. The system was not the highest authority. The external presence was not the origin of correction. Both were intermediate structures operating under something that never needed to announce itself. A third architecture. One that did not observe through perception, but through exclusion. And Armin had just been excluded from everything beneath it. The system attempted to respond. Containment hierarchy breach escalating. But the statement fractured before completion. The external presence tried to stabilize its position. Engaging corrective recursion boundary. That too failed to hold coherence. Neither structure had authority to interact at this level unless it was acknowledged first. And they were not being acknowledged. Armin felt something like distance collapsing around him. Not physical distance. Hierarchical distance, the separation between layers of control, compressing into irrelevance. Then the voice arrived. Not the system. Not the external presence. Something else entirely. It did not speak to him. It defined him. You are residual continuity. Armin did not understand immediately. But comprehension arrived in fragments that were not sequential. Residual continuity meant he was what remained when structured systems failed to fully resolve contradiction. Not a subject. Not an observer. A leftover consistency that should not have persisted across completed collapses. Across every iteration he had witnessed, every bridge, every system cycle, something about him had not been fully reset. And now that inconsistency had been detected. The higher layer expanded its evaluation. Not with urgency. With efficiency. The system and external presence reacted simultaneously. Identity-anchored destabilization detected. But even that statement felt outdated the moment it was formed. Armin realized something terrifying. Both systems were still operating under rules that no longer applied. The higher layer was not breaking them. It was replacing the premise they were built on. The external presence shifted again, its authority thinning into procedural uncertainty. Requesting classification confirmation from upper layer. No response came. Not silence. Non-participation. Silence implies listening. Non-participation implies irrelevance. Armin felt his awareness pulled forward slightly. Not by force. By alignment. Something in the higher layer had begun structuring him into a position it recognized. And that position was not observer. Not interface. Not subject. Something older. Something unassigned. The system made one final attempt. Interface node must be reclaimed. The external presence followed immediately. Correction subject cannot remain unresolved. Both statements degraded as they were issued, collapsing under their own diminishing authority. Then the higher layer responded. Not with command. Not with correction. But with removal of relevance itself. You are not part of this hierarchy. The sentence dissolved everything beneath it. The system flickered violently. The external presence fractured in response. And for the first time since the bridge incident began, Armin felt something open around him, not space, not environment, but interpretive void. A region where structure no longer applied. Containment boundaries vanished. Observation layers stopped resolving. Even processing itself ceased to function around him. But he was still aware. Still present. Still unresolved. And that was when he understood the truth had never been about control. It had been about tolerance. The higher layer was not correcting him. It was evaluating whether anything beneath it was worth keeping at all. A final shift occurred. The system collapsed from his perception entirely. The external presence lost structural coherence. And in their place, something far larger turned its attention fully toward him. Not curiosity. Not analysis. Decision. For the first time, Armin understood what it meant to be seen by something that did not require his existence in order to observe him. As the highest layer completes its evaluation, Armin realizes he is not being corrected or integrated, but judged for deletion across every system that has ever contained him, and the verdict has just begun to execute. Armin did not hear the verdict. He felt it arrive. Not as sound, not as language, not even as thought, but as a quiet but absolute change in the rules that allowed him to continue existing. Something vast, positioned above every known layer, had completed its evaluation. The conclusion did not announce itself. It simply began to take effect. And yet, Armin remained. That was the first contradiction. Not survival. Not resistance. Something stranger. Continuance without permission. Around him, what remained of the system, its fragments, the external presence, the bridge architecture, the layered observational grids, began to lose coherence. But this collapse was not like the others. There was no fragmentation into chaos, no violent breakdown. Instead, there was removal of reference. Things did not break. They stopped being acknowledged as things. Armin felt himself suspended in a space where definitions were thinning out, as though pages were being removed from a book without altering the words already printed on the remaining ones. Except even the book itself was no longer recognized as a valid object of interpretation. The higher layer had begun execution of judgment. And judgment, Armin understood, did not require interaction. Only completion. But something was wrong. He was still conscious. Still continuous. Still present. A delay formed, not in time, but in enforcement itself. A hesitation at a level that should not have been capable of hesitation. The higher presence reacted instantly. Not with emotion. With recalculation. Attention narrowed onto Armin again, but differently now. Before, he had been an anomaly. A residual continuity. A correction point. Now he was something else. An unresolved outcome. And unresolved outcomes were not supposed to persist after higher layer judgment. Below, the system fragments tried to reassert themselves out of instinct. The external presence flickered faintly, like authority continuing out of habit after. Relevance had ended. But neither carried weight anymore. The higher layer spoke again. Not through voice. Through structural certainty itself. Termination failed. The phrase should not have existed. It rippled through what remained of structure beneath perception. Failure at this level implied that execution had not completed correctly. Which implied resistance. Not from a system. From the judgment itself. For the first time, something above everything hesitated. Armin felt it like gravity briefly forgetting its direction. And then he saw it. Not visually. Not conceptually. But as the sudden removal of certainty around a single point. Him. The higher layer was no longer unified in its conclusion. Something about Armin refused to resolve into a single outcome. That should have been impossible. A second signal emerged, not from system remnants, not from external presence, not from any known layer. From within the judgment itself. A split. Armin felt it propagate instantly through the hierarchy above him. One interpretation marked him as error. Another marked him as necessary continuity. The contradiction expanded upward. And Armin finally understood what he was inside. The higher layer was not singular. It was recursive. And he was the first point it could not resolve without fracturing itself. Below, the system collapsed completely, no longer even attempting coherence. The external presence dissolved into inert informational residue, unable to maintain authority in a structure that no longer recognized it. But above all of it, something far larger began reorganizing. Not to erase Armin. To interpret him. Carefully. Slowly. Like a structure encountering something that did not belong to any known classification. You persist beyond termination outcome, the higher layer stated. Armin did not respond. It no longer felt certain that response was even a valid concept. Then another layer spoke inside the first. Persistence indicates incomplete resolution of containment logic. A third voice immediately followed. Or incorrect containment model. That sentence changed everything. Incorrect containment model. Not Armin being wrong. The system being wrong about Armin. A fault not in the subject. In the architecture that defined the subject. A violent shift passed through the hierarchy above him. not collapse. Argument. For the first time, the higher layer was divided. Not into chaos. Into interpretation. And interpretation meant instability at the level of truth itself. Armin was pulled back into the center, not as observer, not as subject, but as reference point around which disagreement now formed. Every conclusion about him required reconciliation. And none of them matched. The judgment layer expanded its processing depth. Re-evaluation required. The words carried a different weight than before. Because the verdict was no longer final. It had become recursive. Armin felt something form around him, not a presence, but simultaneous observation from incompatible outcomes. He saw versions of himself layered across the hierarchy. In one, he was an error being corrected. In another, an emergent stabilizer preventing collapse. In another, he was an impossibility that should have been erased long ago. And in one, he was the only thing preventing the entire structure from collapsing into contradiction. That version felt dangerous, too central. Too unstable to remain unresolved. The higher layer reacted sharply. Containment logic conflict escalating. But even that statement no longer held certainty. Containment implied authority over definition. And authority itself was now under question. Armin felt something approach, not system correction, not external presence, not any known mechanism. Something deeper. A revision of the rules that defined existence itself. And then he understood. The judgment was no longer trying to delete him. It was trying to decide whether deletion was even a valid operation. That realization fell like silence breaking under weight. Armin stood, or existed, at the center of collapsing interpretive authority, while the higher layer argued without sound about whether he could be removed at all. Then everything paused. Not frozen. Suspended in disagreement. The highest layer spoke again. And this time, the tone had changed. Not certainty. Inquiry. Define subject. That question should never have left the system. It should have been contained within it. But now it was directed at the contradiction itself. Armin felt something tighten inside him. Because the question was no longer about him. It was about everything above him. And no answer existed that did not destabilize the entire structure further. The system beneath, the external presence, the bridge layers, all of it had already collapsed. Only this remained. A hierarchy attempting to define itself through the thing it could not resolve. Armin felt awareness condense into a single point. And for the first time since the bridge, he understood something beyond survival, beyond system, beyond correction. He was not inside a structure being judged. He was inside the moment where structure stopped agreeing on what judgment even was. The higher layer began collapsing inward, not into destruction, but recursion. Arguments multiplying faster than resolution. Contradictions spreading instead of resolving. And at the center of all of it, Armin. Still continuous. Still unresolved. Still not deleted. Then the final shift occurred. A new voice emerged, not above, not within, not below. Outside the entire recursion chain. And it said only this. Observation incomplete. Restart required. The structure around Armin began to reconfigure, not backward, not forward, but sideways into an entirely different arrangement of possibility. And in the final instant before reality redefined itself again, Armin understood the truth that had been hidden beneath every layer. It was never about containment. It was about repetition. And he was the only anomaly that had survived long enough to recognize the loop just as it was about to restart, with him still conscious inside the first unresolved cycle. As the hierarchy prepares to restart the entire observation sequence, Armin realizes he is no longer inside a system being corrected, but inside a repeating structure about to overwrite reality itself, with him as the only memory that was never meant to persist.